Hey everybody, Jimmy Smith, ready to do my post-fight breakdown, UFC 251. I'm really tired. I did the post-fight show for SiriusXM till 3 in the morning, which means I didn't get to sleep till about 3:34 in the morning. And then ESPN International, which is kind of my day job now, they wanted to hit on SportsCenter at 10 a.m., so I didn't get a lot of sleep. So anyway, that's why I look the way I do. Hey, Penny. So, hey, I went 5 for 5 on the main card. Woo, check me out. That's not brilliant. Basically, every fight, other than Volkanovski-Holloway, which I'll get to in a minute, went pretty much as expected. I mean, you didn't have to be a genius to see these fights coming. So, a quick note, too. I never, when I've done some gambling shows. There's one in Vegas they like to have me on. There's a big difference between, in the minds of a lot of people, about who's going to win and who should I bet on are usually two different questions, because I don't tell you guys who's going to give you the most value for your bet. I tell you who's going to win. So when I do a gambling show or something like that, I'll say, okay, here's who's probably going to win. And then it's, look, if you want to put big money on a dog, I pick some dogs to say, hey, look, this person's a live dog. I thought a live dog last night was Max Holloway on this gambling show. It was the same odds on certain books as Aldo. Like, they were giving Max Holloway the same chances as Jose Aldo, and I couldn't believe that. I was like, if you want to put money on a dog, go with Max Holloway. So there's a difference between when I do my YouTube channel, I say who's going to win, right? When I do a gambling show, I might say, look, here's who's going to win, but if you want value for your money, which is a totally different conversation, here's who you should pick. So it's not genius to pick all the winners on who's going to win on a fight. Okay, so anyway, enough of that. So bottom of the card, Amanda Ribas, Paige VanZant. Amanda Ribas is the better fighter. Period. End of sentence, right? She looked good in the stand-up, took her down with a head and arm. As soon as Paige VanZant tried to get out, left that arm behind, and getting that arm caught in the hip, if you've ever been in that one, it is straight and it's brutal. I actually got caught in that by my instructor like a little while back, and it was like right in his hip, and boom, and I was like, it's a bad armbar. So that's what she got caught in, was the arm and the hip, which is terrible. But no surprises there. Paige VanZant from the beginning was circling on the outside, kind of like, and Ribas was coming at her, and she just didn't have the confidence to strike with her. She didn't have the technique to grapple with her. A one-sided blowout. There's a reason that fight was 6-1. That's one of those you're like, okay, fine, I'm going to throw $1,000 to win a couple $100. But that's the way it goes. So Paige VanZant goes into free agency off of a loss. Not a lot of options for her. But let me put it this way. Not a lot of options for her in fighting. Okay? She talked about how much she makes on her Instagram and whatever and Dancing with the Stars. So she's going to have opportunities that, people who look like her get. But she's not going to make a lot of money fighting. Can she go to Bellator? Sure. Bellator doesn't have a 115-pound division at the moment. She might go 125. I don't think she beats Alima Lane McFarlane. So could she be a factor in the division? Maybe, especially if they give her the right fights. But this was just not the kind of fight you want heading into free agency, which was a one-sided blowout. Rose Namajunas, Jessica Andrade, fight of the night, which I totally agree with. I thought it was an excellent fight. Rose, for the first 2 rounds, looked great. Good movement, piecing up. Jessica Andrade, good combinations, good counterpunching, good accuracy. Able to stay out of those clinch positions where Jessica Andrade is so strong. And then in round 3, Andrade with this weird, funky head movement. She had this weird head movement kind of style, hands a little low, and just winging punches over the top. I think she started to get, Rose Namajunas' timing a little bit in round 3. And in round 3, Rose started slowing down a bit. So she was an easier target for slower, bigger, stronger punches. And she landed some good ones on Rose. I'm sure everybody saw the picture of her post-fight interview where her left eye is an absolute mess. Nice cut across the bridge of the nose. A lot of people said if that were a 5-rounder, totally different fight. Certainly possible. She certainly had momentum in round 3. So it was one of those that showed what Rose is good at and shows what Jessica Andrade is good at. Both fighters, I think. Rose for sure elevated her status, but Andrade didn't lose that much. She didn't drop out of the contender conversation. It wasn't a blowout. And once again, 5-round fight, we might see a different outcome. So it showed she's still a threat at the elite level. 115 is just stacked in the UFC. Not only did you have Ribas win, both Rose and Jessica Andrade still solidified themselves as elite talent. Rose probably gets Zhang Weili next. That would be my guess. That'd be a big fight. So good for her. I'm glad the stuff that held her back before, the issues with being champ, the loss of her family to COVID, which is horrible. I'm glad to see her win that fight and mentally get things back on track. Peter Yan, Jose Aldo. When I broke this down initially, I mean, I said the problem is Jose Aldo in spurts these days. And once again, we saw that for these brief minutes, he was Jose Aldo, but he couldn't sustain it against Peter Yan. When he would leg kick him, he almost spun him around every time, boom, and his leg kicks, and he would turn, and then he wouldn't throw another one. The old Jose Aldo would go, oh, you like that? Here's 15 more. Wham, 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 wham. And Jose Aldo, once again, threw a good leg kick, but didn't really follow up with a lot of leg kicks. He had some good combinations with his punches, and a couple times, drove Peter Yan back, but it was almost like someone in a firefight that only has so many bullets, and he had to be judicious with when he was going to shoot. The old Jose Aldo would just spray when he had somebody in his line of sight, and this time around, this Jose Aldo at 33, having been through the fights he's been through, just can't sustain the rounds necessary, I think, to beat elite guys. So, and by elite, I mean like champions and contenders. I still think Jose Aldo is certainly a factor in the division at 35 and 45. But Peter Yan at the end, a lot of people thought it could have been stopped early. I agree. I think it should have been stopped a little bit earlier. But one thing is, and I talked about this on ESPN International a few minutes ago, is the reputation of Jose Aldo, the legacy of Jose Aldo. You're a referee standing over one of the greatest fighters of all time. This is a guy who might be on the Mount Rushmore of MMA, right? Top 4 of all time. And you want to give him every opportunity to get back in it. You want to be able to go, oh man, do I really want to be the guy to kind of end not just this fight, but Jose Aldo's run at the elite level? Because I don't think he gets back to a title shot after this. And so that could have played a factor in why it played out so long. He shouldn't have taken that much of a beating. I think the referee should have stopped it a little bit sooner. There wasn't a lot of intelligent defense those last couple minutes, but Peter Yan did what Peter Yan does. I mean, he made the octagon small. He put really good physical pressure. He was relentless. He threw big punches. Not the most versatile fighter in the world, but he gets it done, and now he's the champ. And there are some really intriguing fights for him at 135. Obviously, Cody Garbrandt, former champ, waiting in the wings. Aljamain Sterling looked fantastic last time. To me, that's the next no-brainer fight. But obviously, Sean O'Malley on his way up. 135 is just tough. Very, very tough division. And so there are a lot of fun fights for him. And obviously, Henry Cejudo, I don't believe is retired. Maybe Peter Yan wins a few. People start talking about how great he is, and that makes the former champ come back. Okay, so just a lot of opportunities for him at 135. Great performance. Hats off to him. And by the way, I picked all these. So Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway. The only fight that didn't go the way I thought it would on the main card was Volkanovski, Max Holloway. Here's the deal. Max Holloway clearly won the first 2 rounds. Alexander Volkanovski clearly won round 5. So that leaves 2 toss-up rounds, the 3rd and the 4th round. And the fact that both toss-up rounds went to Volkanovski on 2 scorecards that's the controversy. Is usually those would be split, or at least one judge would, 2 out of 1 judge would split those. 2 out of 3 judges would split those rounds or something. The fact that both rounds were toss-ups, both went to Volkanovski on 2 scorecards, that's really the controversy. I really believe being champ helped him. I really think having the belt, you got to take it from the champ, that kind of thing. If there's a close round, judges usually give it to the guy with the belt. I think that's what happened this time around. Robbery, no. I thought when they were reading the scorecards that Max Holloway won the fight. That's what I thought. But it wasn't, obviously Twitter tends to overblow things. It wasn't a robbery. I thought Holloway won. I thought, this pick didn't go my way and Holloway won. I was wrong. Volkanovski won. But it wasn't, I was throwing stuff at my television bad. But what did Max Holloway do better this time? He brought more physical pressure that prevented the distance Volkanovski needed to get his leg kicks off. So what happened was in the first fight, it almost seemed like Max Holloway was waiting for Volkanovski to come in so he could make a brawl out of it. This time, Holloway took those steps forward to make a brawl out of it, and Volkanovski couldn't get the leg kick off without being off balance and receiving punches. Also, Volkanovski seemed a little more determined early in the fight to land a big punch. So he stepped forward more than he did in the first fight. He made himself vulnerable more than he did in the first fight. He threw a lot loopier punches than he did in the first fight. So that whole, I'm going to finish Max Holloway and I'm going to show that I'm the best 145-pounder in the world, I think that made him a little more aggressive than he should have been early, and Holloway was waiting with a good jab, some good combinations, and really controlling space in the octagon. So Holloway impressed me with the adjustments he made in between fights. But Volkanovski gets the win. Will we see a trilogy? Dana White was really, really critical of the decision. So it's possible. Look what we saw with Jose Aldo. I don't care. Jose Aldo, I don't think Marlon Moraes beat Jose Aldo, so he's fighting for the title next. He could say, I don't think Max Holloway lost that fight, so we're going to see a trilogy. I wouldn't hate it. You know what I mean? I don't like that kind of what I call, promoter nullification. I'm going like, I don't think that win counts. We're going to have another one. I generally don't like that, but in this case, I wouldn't mind seeing a trilogy. I would find it entertaining. It'd be a good fight. I wouldn't mind seeing these guys fight 5 times, right? So anyway, Volkanovski gets the win. I don't think it was a robbery. I did think Max Holloway won, but another pick went my way. Also, another factor that I talked about on ESPN is there's no big money fight right now for Volkanovski if Henry Cejudo doesn't come back. Henry Cejudo comes back, I think that he jumps the line and gets a shot at 145. Other than that, there's some really tough fights for him at 145, but there's no big money pay-per-view. Max Holloway is the biggest name available right now at 145. Zabit Magomedsharipov might be next, but not a guy that a lot of casual fans know that well. Not the most marketable guy in the world. Not a great speaker. All this stuff. So as far as money making, a trilogy with Holloway makes a lot of economic sense. Kamaru Usman, Jorge Masvidal. I said it was going to be a boring fight, that, Usman was going to take him down and take him down and take him down. That's exactly what he did. It wasn't going to stand and bang with Jorge Masvidal. Are you kidding me? So he out-wrestled him. Jorge Masvidal just didn't really have the gas to be a threat past round 2-ish. And that was the story of the fight. Not the most scintillating fight in the world, but that's generally how Kamaru Usman wins. A lot of people thought that with Colby Covington, maybe he had turned a corner and was going to start finishing everybody. I didn't see that at all. What I saw was Colby Covington, an All-American wrestler at Oregon State. He wasn't going to waste a lot of energy trying to take him down. Standing in boxing with Colby Covington was the most efficient way to win. Fighting against Jorge Masvidal, the most efficient way to win is to out-wrestle him, and that's what he did. It was a lot of clinches, a lot of safe takedowns, threatened every now and then with the guillotine, but there was no real threat on the ground like it would be with a Gilbert Burns, for example. He wasn't particularly worried about it. So snatch single legs, clinches, easy takedowns. And once he was on top of him, put a ton of physical pressure on him, and Jorge Masvidal just really didn't have an answer for that. And I've talked to people who have trained with Kamaru Usman here in South Florida, and they're like, once he gets on top of you, that dude is tough to tap. You got to be world class to get him. He's just big and strong, great wrestler, compact, good submission defense. And that's what we saw all night. So it was the fight I thought we would get. It was the fight the Jorge Masvidal fans didn't want. And, Usman's going to be hard to beat. The onus, though, the emphasis for these title defenses in the future for Kamaru Usman is going to be maybe this opponent beats him, right? Somebody put out a tweet, I don't remember who it was, that said, how is UFC going to sell Usman's next pay-per-view fight? And I said, go about the opponent. Will Gilbert Burns be the guy? Will whoever it is next at 170 be the guy? Will so-and-so be the guy? That's what you're selling, essentially, right? And you saw with Mayweather, we didn't think, it wasn't, you're either going to see the technical brilliance of Floyd Mayweather, or is this the guy that can unseat Floyd Mayweather? Whenever you have a fighter with a style that isn't pleasing, it's, can his opponent make him fight? Can his opponent show something, either beat him or make this fighter show something he hasn't shown before? And that's going to be how these fights are marketed from here on out for Kamaru Usman, because he's a tough champion, almost like GSP in his prime. Now, GSP, of course, a better striker, but GSP would just take guys down, and it was boring past round 2. Now, what GSP had was he had a Canadian fan base that would sell out the Bell Center in Montreal every time to watch the guy, so he always made money. But I remember when GSP was in his prime, it was, well, can this fighter crack the code? And I think that's going to be the deal with Kamaru Usman, because right now he's going to be tough to beat. Top flight wrestler, strong, endless gas tank, good puncher when he needs to as well. It's not like his kickboxing is terrible. It's just he'd rather wrestle first. This is a guy who has gone to the 5th round in his last 5 fights. The only finish was Colby Covington. That's insane. The guy just puts in minutes every time he fights. So he's going to be hard to beat. For Jorge Masvidal, what's next? A lot of entertaining fights for him. I don't think he's a factor at 170. Not that he's not a great fighter, is that it's packed with guys who stylistically don't match up with him very well. It's a bunch of guys who have wrestling skills. They're going to try and take him on Wonder Boy, already beat him. When you look at the top 5, the elite, the contenders, not a lot of them are going to stand and bang with Jorge Masvidal. Not a lot of them are going to get in a punching battle with this guy. So I see him looking for a more aesthetically pleasing fight. The most aesthetically pleasing fight would be Conor. I would love to see that. Another fight with Nate. Him trying to draw Nick out of retirement. These, boy, I can't wait to see this fight kind of fights. That casual fans and even hardcore fans like myself are going to absolutely eat up. So he's going to be a little bit pickier, I think, from here on out. He doesn't want another fight for the title, but it's a boring fight. He did that to make money. I don't think he does that again. So 5 for 5 on the main card. Good night of fights. Main event went pretty much how I expected. So we'll see what happens next. And I'll drop my picks before the next one as well. Appreciate you guys.